The deep silence of space was broken by an urgent beeping sound in Earth's Deep Space Monitor Station. Tom Wilson, the night shift operator, nearly spilled his coffee as multiple red dots appeared on his screen. He blinked twice, making sure he wasn't seeing things after his 12-hour shift. "Control, this is Station 7. Tom spoke into his microphone, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm picking up unusual energy readings at the edge of our solar system. Nothing like we've seen before." The response came quickly. "Copy that, Station 7. Can you verify the readings?" Tom's fingers flew across his keyboard, running every check he knew. The signals were real. What caught his attention wasn't just their strength, but their pattern. They were organized, almost like a heartbeat, but failing. Within an hour, the Space Defense Force headquarters was wide awake. Captain Robert James stood before a wall of screens, his experienced eyes studying the data streams. 20 years in space operations hadn't prepared him for this moment. "Show me the heat signatures again," he ordered, and the main screen lit up with infrared images. The pattern was clear now. A massive group of objects, each larger than anything humans had ever built in space, drifting silently at the edge of their solar system. "Sir," a young analyst spoke up, "energy readings suggest they're running on emergency power. If these are ships," she paused, double-checking her calculations, "their life support systems are failing." Captain James nodded slowly. He'd seen enough distress situations to recognize one, even if it came from the stars. "Get me a direct feed from our long-range telescopes." The images that appeared made everyone in the room catch their breath. There, against the backdrop of distant stars, floated what could only be described as a fleet. The ships were elegant, with smooth curves that seemed impossible for metal to make. But they were dark, with only faint lights flickering across their hulls, like a city during a power outage. "How many?" James asked. "We count 37 large vessels, sir." And the analyst zoomed in on one section, what appeared to be hundreds of smaller craft between them. "Total estimated population, if these are passenger vessels," she swallowed hard, "could be in the thousands." James felt the weight of the moment. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, but it came with an immediate moral test. These weren't just aliens. They were aliens in trouble. He picked up his secure phone and dialed a number he'd hoped he'd never have to use. "Sir," he spoke to the Space Defense Force commander, "we have a situation that requires immediate attention." "Yes, sir. First contact scenario, but with a twist. They need our help." The next few hours were a blur of activity. As news spread through the proper channels, the world's governments began emergency sessions. Scientists analyzed the data, military leaders assessed potential threats, and politicians argued about jurisdiction. But Captain James couldn't shake what he saw in those images. The failing lights, the drifting ships. He'd spent his life in space operations, and one rule had always held true. In space, everyone was one system failure away from disaster. It didn't matter what planet you came from. During the emergency United Earth Council meeting, James stood before the world's leaders and spoke from his heart. "We're seeing history unfold," he said, his voice firm. "But more importantly, we're facing a test of who we are as a species. Those ships out there are in trouble. We don't know who they are or where they're from, but they need help. If we want to be seen as a spacefaring civilization worthy of respect, we must extend help to those in need." He pointed to the latest images. "Their power is failing. Their ships are dead in space. Whatever brought them here, whatever they might be, right now they're just people who need our help. We have the capability to reach them. The only question is, will we?" The room fell silent. In that moment, humanity faced its first real extraterrestrial challenge. It wasn't a battle or an invasion. It was a cry for help in the dark of space, and their response would define Earth's first impression to the stars. The world changed in less than 24 hours. News of the alien fleet spread quickly through official channels, and Earth's greatest minds gathered to face this unprecedented challenge. The United Earth Council chamber was packed with leaders from every nation, all focused on one question: how should humanity respond? Admiral Parker, head of the Space Defense Force, stood at the podium. Our scans show their main power systems are completely dead. Life support is running on emergency backup, and those systems are failing. We estimate they have less than 2 weeks before total system failure. The room erupted in heated discussion. The Chinese representative spoke first. How do we know this isn't a trap? They could be faking their emergency to hit close to Earth. With respect, Captain James interrupted, pointing to the latest scans. You don't fake radiation signatures from failing quantum cores. Those ships are dying. The Indian representative stood next. Even if it's not a trap, helping them could expose Earth to unknown diseases. We must think of our people's safety. Dr. Linda Thompson, Earth's leading expert in space medicine, stepped forward. We've already analyzed their radiation signatures. Their biology appears to be carbon-based, like ours. Any diseases would likely not be compatible with human biology. The greater risk is letting thousands of thinking beings die when we could help. The debate raged on. Some nations wanted to send only robots. Others suggested towing the alien fleet to Mars orbit first. A few even proposed ignoring the aliens completely. Captain James watched the arguments with growing frustration. Finally, he asked for the floor one more time. Look at these images, he said, displaying new pictures from their best space telescopes. See those smaller ships clustered in the center of their fleet. Those are the ones still showing life signs. They've gathered their people there to share the last working life support systems. These aren't conquerors. These are parents protecting their children. He switched to another image. And look here. They've positioned their largest ships as shields against solar radiation. That's not the action of warriors. That's what refugees do. That's what survivors do. The room grew quiet as James continued. Throughout human history, we've faced moments that defined us. When ships sent SOS signals, we helped. When climbers got stranded on mountains, we helped. When earthquakes struck, we helped. It didn't matter who they were or where they came from. That's who we are. But these are aliens, someone protested. Yes, James agreed. They're aliens who need help. If we turn our backs now, we'll be sending a message to the entire universe about who we are as a species. Is that the message we want to send? The Japanese representative stood slowly. My grandfather was a fisherman, she said. He used to tell me, the sea doesn't care where you're from. If someone needs help, you help. Space is just another sea. I vote we help them. Support began to build. The Russian space commander offered their newest fusion engines. The European Union promised their best engineers. African nations offered their spacecraft assembly facilities. Finally, the Council President called for a vote. The decision was made. Earth would mount a rescue mission. Captain James immediately began organizing the response. They would send a fleet of Earth's best ships, led by his own vessel, the Earth Force One. Each ship would carry engineers, medical teams, and enough supplies to support both humans and aliens. As he walked out of the council chamber, Dr. Thompson caught up with him. You know we're about to attempt something unprecedented, she said. We'll be trying to merge our technology with aliens we know nothing about. James nodded. Yes, but think about what we'll learn. And more importantly, think about what this says about humanity. Our first major action as a spacefaring species isn't war or trade. It's helping others in need. As night fell over Earth, shipyards around the world roared to life. Engineers worked frantically to modify ships for rescue operations. Supply ships were loaded with emergency equipment, and in homes across the planet, humans looked up at the stars, knowing that their next great adventure wasn't just about exploration. It was about compassion. The human rescue fleet approached the alien ships slowly, their engines glowing against the darkness of space. Captain James stood on the bridge of Earth Force One, watching as the massive alien vessels grew larger in their view screens. Up close, the alien ships were even more impressive. Their hulls shimmered with a metal humans had never seen before. All ships maintain safe distance, James ordered. Start broadcasting the greeting message on all frequencies. The message was simple: mathematical sequences showing human intelligence, followed by basic diagrams explaining their peaceful intentions. They had worked for days to make it as clear as possible. Dr. Thompson monitored her instruments carefully. "Captain, I'm detecting movement on the largest ship. They're powering up some kind of communication system." The bridge crew held their breath as the first alien transmission arrived. At first, it was just patterns of light pulsing across their screens, but their computers quickly recognized it as a response using the same mathematical language they had sent. "They're trying to establish a video link," the communications officer reported. "Should I accept?" James straightened his uniform. "Accept. Let's meet our new friends." The main screen flickered to life, and humanity had its first look at the aliens. They were humanoid, but with silver-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer like their ships. Their eyes were large and completely blue, without pupils. The alien in the center wore what appeared to be a uniform with flowing symbols across its chest. Using their mathematical foundation, both sides quickly established basic communication. The aliens called themselves the Meridians. Their leader, who asked to be called K, explained their situation through a combination of simple drawings and mathematical equations. "Our ships," K transmitted, pointing to diagrams, "hit space storm. Quantum cores damage. Power failing. Children in danger." The universal translator I was learning their language patterns quickly, making communication easier by the minute. K explained that they had been traveling to establish a new colony when they encountered a strange anomaly in space. It had damaged their advanced quantum drive systems, leaving them stranded. "Most critical," K continued, now speaking through the improving translator, "are the cryopods holding our children. Without main power, they will fail in 7 Earth days." James looked at Dr. Thompson, who nodded grimly. "The readings confirm it," she said. "Their power systems are failing exactly as they describe." "We can help," James transmitted back. "But we need to come aboard your ships. Our technology is different from yours. We need to see your systems to know how to connect them to our power sources." There was a long pause as the aliens discussed among themselves. James understood their hesitation. Letting unknown aliens board their ships was a huge risk, but they had no choice. Finally, Kay responded, "We accept, but please understand, our children are our future. We must protect them." "We understand completely," James replied. "We're parents too." The next few hours were a flurry of activity as human engineering teams prepared to board the alien vessels. They wore special suits designed to protect both species from any biological contamination. Each team carried portable fusion generators and a variety of adaptation equipment. As the first human shuttle docked with a main alien ship, James felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Through the docking port windows, he could see Kay and several other Meridians waiting to greet them. Their silver skin glowed softly in the emergency lighting. The airlock cycled, and both species stood face to face for the first time. Kay stepped forward and raised a hand in what looked surprisingly like a human greeting gesture. "Welcome," Kay said through the translator. "You are the first other beings we have met who offered help without asking for payment." James smiled and raised his own hand in response. "On Earth, we have a saying, 'A friend in need is a friend indeed.'" As human engineers began filing through the airlock with their equipment, both leaders watched their teams naturally starting to work together, despite their differences. The Meridians' children might just have a chance now, and humanity might have just made their first true friends among the stars. Dr. Smith stood in the Meridian engine room, staring at their quantum drive with a mixture of awe and concern. The technology was beyond anything humans had ever created. The engine core twisted in ways that seemed to bend space itself, but now it sat dark and lifeless. It's like looking at a computer from the future, he told Captain James through his suit radio. Their technology doesn't just use advanced physics, it uses principles we've only theorized about. Next to him, the Meridian engineer named Blue made a series of gentle clicking sounds that the translator converted. The quantum core was damaged when we passed through the space anomaly. Without it, we cannot power our ships properly. Dr. Smith walked around the massive engine, his handheld scanner beeping steadily. The quantum core was beautiful even in its damaged state, with crystalline structures that seemed to catch light from impossible angles. But it was also completely beyond their ability to repair. "Captain," Smith said, "we can't fix their quantum drives. We'd need another 50 years of physics research just to understand how they work." But he paused, an idea forming. Maybe we don't have to. James leaned forward in his command chair. "Explain." "Their ships are dying because they've lost their main power source. But power is power. If we can create an adapter to connect our fusion reactors to their power grid, we might be able to keep their critical systems running." Blue's translator crackled. "Your fusion technology is primitive. It cannot match the power output of our quantum cores." "No," Smith agreed, "but we don't need to match it. We just need to supply enough power to run life support and the cryopods. Sometimes the simple solution is the best one." The next few hours were a crash course in cross-species engineering. Human engineers spread through the alien fleet, working alongside Meridian technicians. They discovered that while the aliens' technology was far advanced, it followed the same basic principles of physics. In the main engineering bay, Smith and his team laid out their plan. They would modify Earth's fusion reactors to match the energy frequency of Meridian systems. It wasn't elegant, but it might work. "Think of it like this," Smith explained to Captain James, using his hands to demonstrate. "Their ships are like a high-tech city that's lost its power plant. Our fusion reactors are like old-fashioned generators. They're not as efficient, but they can still keep the lights on." The first tests were nerve-wracking. They connected a small fusion reactor to a minor system on one of the Meridian ships. The power flowed, but the alien circuits struggled to accept the less refined energy. "The power transfer is too rough," Blue observed. "It is like, how do you say, trying to power a computer with lightning." That's when Lisa, a young engineer from Brazil, had an idea. "What if we use their own power regulators as a buffer, like a filter for our energy?" The Meridians were skeptical, but they had no choice. Time was running out for the children in the cryopods. Working together, human and alien engineers began modifying power regulators across the fleet. They worked through their rest periods, human and Meridian engineers passing tools back and forth, learning each other's technical terms, finding ways to make their different technologies work together. What the humans lacked in advanced knowledge, they made up for with practical experience and creative problem-solving. Finally, after 36 hours of non-stop work, they were ready to test their solution on a larger scale. They had connected 3 fusion reactors to the main power grid of the largest Meridian ship. "Power systems ready," Smith reported, his voice tense with exhaustion and excitement. "Life support systems standing by," Blue added. Captain James watched from the bridge as Dr. Smith pressed the activation sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, lights began coming on throughout the alien ship. The emergency klaxons that had been wailing continuously finally fell silent. A cheer went up from both human and Meridian crews. Their jerry-rigged solution was working. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't elegant, but it was keeping the ships alive. Sometimes, Smith thought, that's all you really need. The warning came without warning. Tom Wilson, still manning his station at the Deep Space Monitor, noticed it first. His sensors showed a massive solar flare building up on the sun's surface. His hand shook as he calculated its direction. "Captain James," he radioed, his voice urgent. "We have a problem. A big one." On the bridge of Earth Force One, James looked at the data streaming in. His face grew serious. "How long do we have?" 8 hours at most, Tom replied. The storm will hit both fleets directly. Sir, it's twice as strong as anything we've ever recorded. James turned to Kay, who stood beside him on the bridge. The Meridian leader's silver skin had taken on a darker shade. What humans had learned was their version of turning pale. Our shields would have protected us, Kay said quietly, but without main power. They both knew what that meant. The makeshift power system they'd created was keeping life support running, but it couldn't generate enough energy for the advanced shield systems that would normally protect the ships from solar radiation. Dr. Smith rushed onto the bridge, Blue close behind him. Captain, we've been running calculations. The human ship shields won't be enough either. Not for a storm this size. The situation was grim. They had 37 massive alien ships to protect, each one carrying thousands of lives. The human fleet's shields were working, but they were designed for much smaller vessels. What if? Blue started, then stopped, looking uncertain. Go on, James encouraged. He'd learned that good ideas could come from anyone. Your ships have strong shields, but they're small. Our ships have no shields, but they're large. What if we combine our advantages? Dr. Smith's eyes lit up as he understood. We could position the human ships in a pattern around the Meridian fleet. Our shields might not be strong enough individually, but if we overlap them. Like tiles on a roof, James nodded. But we'd need to boost shield power beyond normal safety limits. We could redirect power from the fusion reactors we installed, Smith suggested. The life support systems can run on emergency backup for a few hours. Kay touched some symbols on a floating display. If we move all our people to the central ships, we could shut down life support on the outer vessels completely. That would give you more power for your shields. They had a plan, but now they faced a desperate race against time. The next 6 hours were a blur of activity. Meridian families crowded into the central ships, while human engineers worked frantically to redirect power systems. Every human ship took up precise positions around the alien fleet, their shields carefully overlapping. Storm approaching. Tom's voice came over the radio. 2 hours remaining. Inside the ships, tension built. They had done everything they could, but would it be enough? Human crew members helped Meridian children into emergency radiation shelters. Engineers made final adjustments to power systems that were already glowing red with strain. 1 hour, Tom updated. Dr. Smith worked with Blue, both of them typing rapidly on their different computers. They had managed to link the human shield generators together, creating a web of protection around both fleets. But the power drain was enormous. 30 minutes. Captain James watched the sun on his view screen. The flare was visible now, a massive burst of energy heading straight for them. Beside him, Kay stood quietly, both leaders watching as the storm approached. All ships, final positions, James ordered. Divert all possible power to shields. Everyone into radiation shelters. This is going to be rough. The storm hit like a hammer of light. The shield network lit up, glowing bright enough to be seen from Earth. Inside the ships, instruments screamed warnings as power systems were pushed far beyond their designed limits. Shield generators overheating, Smith reported, his voice tense. We're losing power on sectors 7 through 12. Blue worked quickly, rerouting emergency power, transferring reserve energy from shutdown ships. The entire fleet shuddered as another wave hit. They were only halfway through the storm, and their defenses were already failing. Now it would come down to whether human engineering and Meridian technology, working together, could hold out long enough to protect both species from nature's fury. The combined fleet shook as another wave of solar radiation hammered their shields. In Earth Force One's engine room, warning lights flashed everywhere. The ship's fusion reactor glowed dangerously bright, pushed far beyond its safety limits. Shield power dropping to 30%, shouted Dr. Smith over the noise of straining engines. We can't take much more of this. Blue, working at a nearby console, suddenly straightened up. Doctor, look at these readings. The radiation. It's not just hitting our shields. Some of it is being absorbed. Smith rushed to Blue's station, his eyes scanning the data. The alien was right. Their overlapped shields weren't just blocking the solar storm. They were actually capturing some of its energy. "Captain," Smith called over the radio, "I think we might have accidentally built something incredible here. The way we've arranged our ships, the overlapping shields, they're working like a giant solar panel." On the bridge, Captain James gripped his chair as another wave hit. "Can we use that? And make it fast? We've got more incoming." Smith and Blue worked furiously at their computers, human and alien minds tackling the problem together. "If we modify the shield frequency," Blue suggested, "we could capture more energy. And if we route that power back through the Meridian's power grid," Smith added, catching on to the idea, "we could power up our main systems." Blue finished excitedly. It was a crazy plan, but they were out of options. The next wave would break through their failing shields unless they tried something different. "Do it," James ordered. "All ships prepare to modify shield frequencies on Dr. Smith's mark." Throughout the fleet, human and Meridian engineers worked together, quickly adjusting their systems. They had one chance to get this right. "Ready," Smith called out. "Changing frequencies in 3, 2, 1. Now." The shield network flickered, changing from a solid blue to a shimmering rainbow of colors. The next radiation wave hit, but this time, instead of just hammering against their defenses, the energy seemed to flow through the shield pattern. "It's working," Blue announced, power levels rising in all ships. The combined fleet had become a massive energy collector, using the very force that threatened to destroy them as a power source. Emergency lights switched to main power across the Meridian ships. Systems that had been dead for days hummed back to life. "Meridian power grid at 60%. Blue reported. 70%. 80. Smith watched in amazement as the alien ship's systems reactivated. The quantum cores, they're using the solar energy to repair themselves. The storm raged on, but now each wave made them stronger instead of weaker. The Meridian ship's own advanced shields began powering up, adding another layer of protection to their makeshift defense. "All children's cryopods now operating on full power," Kay reported from the main Meridian ship, relief clear in the translator's voice. "Life support restored to all vessels." For the next hour, they rode out the storm, their combined technology not just surviving but thriving on the solar energy. Human ingenuity and Meridian technology had turned their greatest threat into their salvation. Finally, the last wave passed. The fleet emerged intact, and the Meridian ships were now operating at full power. Their quantum cores hummed with new energy, repaired by the very force that had nearly destroyed them. In Earth Force One's engine room, Dr. Smith and Blue looked at each other with tired but happy expressions. "You know," Smith said, "we just invented a whole new way of harvesting solar energy, something neither of our species had thought of alone." Blue's silver skin rippled in what humans had learned was their version of a smile. "Perhaps the universe has a sense of humor. We came seeking help for our damaged power systems, and ended up finding a whole new power source," Smith finished. "Sometimes the best solutions come from working together." On the bridge, Captain James and Kay watched as the Meridian ships lit up fully for the first time since their rescue mission began. The once dark vessels now shone brightly against the stars, their quantum cores pulsing with new life. "Your people," Kay said softly, "turned our darkest hour into our brightest moment. We will not forget this." James smiled. "That's what friends are for. Now shall we see about getting your colony established? I think Earth might be interested in being neighbors." 1 month after the solar storm, the Meridian fleet hung in orbit around Mars, their ships now gleaming with fully restored power. The red planet's surface below was dotted with the first structures of their new colony, built with both human and Meridian technology working together. Captain James stood in the observation dome of the new Mars station, Watching this, construction robots from both species worked side by side. Next to him, Kay pointed to a large dome taking shape on the surface. "That will be our first school," Kay said, the translator no longer needed as both species had learned to understand each other better. "We want our children to learn both our histories, our sciences, and our ways of thinking." Dr. Smith and Blue were working at a nearby console, finalizing the designs for what they now called the Storm Shield, the revolutionary power collection system they had discovered during the crisis. The technology was already being adapted for use on Earth and other human colonies. "It's amazing," Smith said, looking up from his work. "Your quantum physics and our practical engineering. They complement each other perfectly. We're advancing both our sciences by decades." The United Earth Council had met with the Meridian leaders earlier that day to sign their first official treaty. It wasn't just a friendship agreement. It was a commitment to share knowledge, resources, and support each other's growth among the stars. Lisa, the young engineer who had helped save the fleet, was now teaching a group of Meridian engineers about human fusion technology. "Sometimes simpler is better," she explained, showing them how to maintain the fusion reactors. "These might not be as advanced as quantum cores, but they're reliable and easy to fix." In return, the Meridians were helping humans understand the principles behind their quantum drives. It would take years for humanity to fully grasp the science, but the Meridians were patient teachers. Tom Wilson, whose first alert had started this whole adventure, had been promoted to head of the new Joint Space Monitoring Station. Human and Meridian sensors now worked together, watching for any signs of other civilizations that might need help, or any more mysterious space anomalies. "The anomaly that damaged your ships," James said to Kay. "We still don't know what it was." Kay's silver skin rippled thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is our next mission together, to explore and understand these mysteries of space. But this time, we go prepared, with both our technologies working as one." In the station's medical bay, Dr. Thompson worked with Meridian healers, both species learning from each other's medical knowledge. They had discovered that while their bodies were different, the principles of healing were often the same. "Your children are all healthy," Thompson reported to Kay. "The cryopods did their job, and now they're adapting well to Mars gravity. They're especially excited about playing with the human children in the new colony." The sight of human and Meridian children playing together had become common. Despite their different appearances, children from both species had quickly found ways to communicate and have fun together. Captain James smiled as he watched a group of them outside the dome, the children wearing special suits as they built sculptures in the Martian sand. "You know," he said to Kay, "when we first detected your fleet, some people were afraid. They thought our first contact with aliens would mean war or invasion, and we feared that no one would help us," Kay replied. "That we would drift in space until our power failed completely. We were both wrong about each other." "That's the greatest lesson in all this," James agreed. "Not the new technology, not the colonies we're building, but the simple truth that kindness and cooperation are universal, that when we reach out to help others, we all grow stronger." As the sun set over Mars, casting long shadows across the new colony, both leaders watched their people working together. The Meridian ships no longer looked alien among the human vessels. They were simply part of one fleet, one community. "To the future," Kay said, using the human gesture of raising a hand. "To the future," James replied, "and to friendship among the stars." Below them, Mars glowed with new life, a testament to what two species could achieve when they chose to work together. It was just the beginning of their shared journey into the unknown.